All right, well, good morning, everybody, and happy second day of Plunge. It's so good to see you together again this morning. I hope everybody had a great evening. I know last night's panel was really exciting and great to host the entire group of plungers, captains, and UPAs here on the Rose Hill campus today for a full day spent in the Bronx. We're hoping that the weather is going to stick with us and make all of our engagements this afternoon possible. It is my honor to introduce the panel before you from advocacy to policymaking, environmental justice, and the Cross Bronx Expressway. So I'm so excited about this panel and to be able to introduce you to some of the community leaders, policymakers, and collaborators that are really making a huge impact in one of the most significant issues facing the Bronx, New York City, our nation, and our world, and that is environmental justice and sustainability. As in so many things, Fordham takes our cues in our work in environmental justice from the community work that is being done, that's been done for decades here in the Bronx and in New York City to advance environmental justice, to promote public health, and to support and celebrate the Bronxites and New Yorkers who make up this amazing community that you are now joining as first-year students. And so I'm really excited to be able to introduce a discussion that's going to highlight one of the key initiatives to promote environmental justice in the Bronx, and that is the reimagining of the Cross Bronx. So you have with you today some of the experts who have been collaborating for years on making this dream a reality. We have first, as our moderator, Nilka Martell, a wonderful friend of Fordham and of the Center for Community Engaged Learning, who is the founder of Loving the Bronx. And in 2016, she initiated the Cap the Cross Bronx campaign, aiming to reduce the harmful effects of truck traffic, reconnect communities, and create new open spaces. And so really starting from this community-driven effort, you now see what you're going to hear today, an initiative that brings together policymakers, community leaders, higher education, researchers, and students like you to join together to reimagine what the Bronx can look like, what smart city design can look like, and really to address public health and environmental justice concerns in real time. On our panel, we have Dr. Salihah Dick, who is Asthma Program Manager at the Bronx Neighborhood Health, New York City. And she is an expert in many areas of public health, including childhood obesity, type 2 diabetes, lung cancer metabolism, really working to influence public health outcomes, especially among the underserved, by making healthy choices on the individual, community, and systemic level. We have Paul Phillips, Director of the Bronx Office for the Department of City Planning. He has previously served as a senior planner and team leader at DCP, as a liaison to Community Districts 1 and 4. Under his leadership, the board approved Bronx Point, a mixed-use development that will have over 1,000 units of housing, waterfront access, the Universal Hip Hop Museum, and more than 2 additional acres of open space at Mill Pond Park. And this evening, I know at our artist showcase, you will learn more about the history of hip hop, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary here in the Bronx. We have also with us today, Víctor Martínez, policy advisor in the office of Congressmember Ritchie Torres. Victor's multifaceted career is marked by his commitment to public service and his ability to bridge policy and community needs. And he has worked with Fordham and with the center on so many different issues that bring together community leadership, higher education, and policy so that we can really be stronger as we work together. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to the experts and invite Nilka to lead us off. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you to Fordham University, to all the students, all the folks that worked behind the scenes to make this happen, to Saray Miranda, who works tirelessly. Thank you. It is an honor for me to be here this morning to share this space with you, to talk about this incredible opportunity and to be accompanied by these great experts here on health, on city planning, and on government. So to provide some context, I'm going to condense a 12-year story to about 5 to 7 minutes for you to have a better understanding of how this project came to be. It's important for us to share this story, to empower others who are interested in leading campaigns to better understand the work that's done to make these projects a reality. I will simply be sharing the community efforts, and I'll leave the areas of expertise to our panels. As Julie mentioned, I am the founder and director of a grassroots organization called Loving the Bronx. We are a group of ordinary Bronxites who started volunteering, attending meetings, becoming more civically engaged, and really just had a desire to be an agent of change in our own neighborhood. In 2012, we started stewarding a local park, Virginia Park. And in 4 short years, we successfully advocated for a reconstruction grant of that park, a $10.3 million investment. And it got us thinking, if we were able to pull this off, just regular Bronxites, what could we do next? And we thought about the impact that this reconstruction would have to the park and to the area and to the neighbors. And while we were thrilled about this reconstruction, the park is adjacent to this below grade portion of the highway. So when we thought about it, right, the park would be reconstructed, it'd be more inviting, but we'd have the same problem of folks coming to the park, sitting next to the fumes that were created by the truck traffic. You know, we had learned throughout the years, and for me, it was a personal story. My son was diagnosed with asthma when he was very young, that particularly in the South Bronx, we had one of the highest asthma rates. So in 2016, we set out a campaign with no budget and no expertise called Cap the Cross Bronx. It was a very ambitious project. Anyone that we spoke to thought that we were absolutely crazy. Who was going to pay for this? Why was this important? But we did what we did best. We showed up at spaces, we spoke to people, we organized, and we made sure, you know, to let people know the importance of capping these spaces, of decreasing air pollution, of decreasing the noise pollution, and really an opportunity to create new spaces. For us, this idea was just looking, you know, we knew it was a very ambitious idea to cap the highway, right? So we really scaled it down to just this one portion adjacent to Virginia Park. And I think a couple of you are going to meet me at Virginia Park a little later on, so you'll actually see what I'm talking about. You know, to cap this one portion and use it as a catalyst. You know, and again, when you're kicking off a campaign and you have no funding, people don't take you seriously, right? But in 2018, we were fortunate enough that there were a group of doctors over at Columbia University, who published a case study on the cost effectiveness of capping the Cross Bronx. We had no idea who these doctors were, but it really provided us an opportunity that when we shared this idea with others, we actually had a case study that we can share with others. In 2019, we gained the support of Assemblywoman Carines Reyes. She was the only elected official at that time to really be a believer in this project, particularly because she was a registered nurse prior to her appointment as Assemblywoman. So she understood the public health implications of the expressway and how many people in the Bronx suffered from respiratory issues. And it wasn't until 2021 that we connected with a group of students called the Bronx One Policy Group. These students were from Albert Einstein College of Medicine and really looking at infrastructure and how and the implications of infrastructure to the health and the well-being of the Bronx. And they were able to introduce us to one of the doctors, Dr. Peter Munich, who wrote that case study, and we created this perfect trifecta. And in March of 2021, we took this idea to, at the time, newly elected Congressman Ritchie Torres, to talk about this idea. Now, representation is so important, right? We knew that Ritchie was from the Bronx, that Ritchie had grown up along the Cross Bronx Expressway, and Ritchie had suffered from childhood asthma. And within a short couple of months, less than 7 months, he was able to work with Senator Schumer and allocate $2 million for the feasibility study. So right now, the campaign is, for us as a community group, it'll always remain Cap the Cross Bronx. But now that it is in the hands of state DOT, working with other city agencies, it is called Reimagine the Cross Bronx. So at this time, I will pass it over to Paul Phillips to talk about the campaign, the initiative to reimagine the Cross Bronx, and how that complements and it grows on this smaller campaign to cap the Cross Bronx.
Thank you, Nilka. Hopefully is this working? So as Nilka mentioned, we have a $2 million grant to do a feasibility study. And so, yes, Nilka's campaign is about capping the Cross Bronx. I will just say, we have not determined what all the solutions would be. I think where we are right now is that we are in the process of doing things like this, events like these. I'm gonna, in a little while, give a shameless plug for some workshops that we're gonna be doing. We have 3 of them, and then we have another event in October. These are really great opportunities for to get out and talk to folks. So when we began this year, we did some open houses across the study area. I should just point out, this is a really large study. It encompasses, I think, 5 or 6 different community districts, and it looks at neighborhoods that are affected from the Cross Bronx. So you have the Highbridge neighborhood, you have Morris Heights, Mount Eden, Mount Hope, Claremont, East Tremont, West Farms, Parkchester, and Unionport. And roughly, this is affects about 325,000 Bronxites. And these are people that live near or around and are affected by the Cross Bronx. And again, the study area in itself is also a greater impact area. So where we are right now is that, it is really important for us to hear from folks across the city. People like Nilka and organizations like Loving the Bronx are really integral part of the work that we do. And so we are really in the exploratory phase right now still. We are still working with community residents, working with local organizations, working with our partners. I should just point out, so this is a collaborative effort between the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, New York City Department of City Planning, the New York City Department of Transportation, as well as the State Department of Transportation. So the 4 of us collectively, with all of our partners, are working collectively to really think about and work with folks about solutions. Those will be short-term and long-term. Some of the shorter term we're hoping will be things like identifying things for open space and maybe some pollution mitigation measures. Some of the longer term alternatives, those are going to have to sort of be, in terms of feasibility, they're going to have to be evaluated in terms of like their possibility of actually coming to fruition. That's going to include feasibility of just like, can this actually happen? And then also there's a cost factor. I mean, in a perfect world, we would do everything, but as everyone knows, everything has a cost tag. And so that funding is going to be an important part of it as well. So we are in the very early stages. I'm gonna just, before I turn it over to anyone, I am gonna plug some of our events that are coming up. So we have upcoming events. We have what we're doing, what are called workshops, which are like my favorite events because they're interactive. Like, you're not sitting in a room looking at docs, you're actually walking the neighborhood. I did 2 earlier this summer, and they're led by members of my staff. And they're amazing because what you get to do is really walk the neighborhood with folks who have a vested interest in seeing us reimagine the Cross Bronx. And we have a discussion about, like, what are the pros and cons? What are some of the things that you see? And so these are really great. So we have upcoming events. So September 9th, we have a workshop. This will be the West workshop. This will be Morris Heights, Highbridge, and Mount Eden. We also have one on the 23rd. This will be Crotona and Claremont. And then we have another one on the 7th, which will be the workshop for the East, which will be Parkchester and Unionport. So if folks are interested, you can go to crossbronx.info. You can get more information, and I encourage folks to sign up for the workshops if you're interested, pass the word along. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague at the Department of Health.
Good morning, everyone. I think for me, the perspective of our agency, the Department of Health, is trying to elevate and highlight the challenges faced by members of the community here in the Bronx. So when we consider the history of the Cross Bronx Expressway, it was constructed in the 1960s, 1970s, I believe. And when it was constructed, it was the first highway to be designed and to be built through a city. So typically you think about highways in history, they connect communities, but they don't actually run through a community. And in the construction of this highway, we had the displacement of over 40,000 people. So we had people who, it was prior to the construction of the Cross Bronx Expressway, the South Bronx was a very integrated community. We had people from diverse backgrounds. It was not just a Black and brown neighborhood. Subsequent to the construction of the Cross Bronx Expressway, we had white flight being set in. Redlining, of course, was the reason why I guess this community or this area was selected. And as a result of redlining, if you know the history of redlining, basically communities were separated according to the color code on a map. So if you were in a green region, you were prime for investment. If you were in the red region, you were not. And so you could not access loans, you could not access government-backed mortgages, you could not access basic investment into your community. So as a result of the construction of the Cross Bronx Expressway, we had this displacement of the more affluent members of the community into the suburbs. And then we had what's defined as urban decay being set in. And the effects of that reverberate from since the 60s and 70s through to today. In terms of health outcomes, the Bronx is the district within the state of New York that's ranked 62. So we have 62 districts, I believe, health districts in the state of New York, and the Bronx consistently, since this measure was introduced about 10, 15 years ago, has consistently ranked number 62, which is heartbreaking. But if we understand the reasons why this happened, the systemic and structural issues that have resulted in this issue, then we can take measures, we can take appropriate steps to mitigate the damage. So I'm the Asthma Program Manager at the Department of Health, the Tremont Bronx Neighborhood Health Office. And typically, as we can see, the South Bronx has one of the highest rates of asthma in the country. In terms of prevalence of asthma, within the city of New York, the Bronx, we have Brooklyn, we have Queens, we have Manhattan. The prevalence of asthma among children 1 to 13 years of age in the Bronx is about twice that of the rest of the city on a whole. So we have about 21%, 1 in 5 children from 1 to 13 have asthma, whereas citywide it's about 12%, 1 in 10, okay? So about double the rate of asthma. If you think about emergency department visits, so we have about twice the rate of ED visits and hospitalization among students with asthma in the Bronx versus the rest of the city. Statewide, I think the prevalence is it's comparable. I have the numbers here. It's difficult to talk data without slides, but in terms of prevalence of asthma statewide, among children, it's 12.4%, but among 12.4% in New York State, but in New York City, it's about 11.4%. So it's not like drastically different. But if you parse it apart by district, by region, then we see the Bronx is like a hotspot, right? The Bronx is a hotspot. And I am really heartened by efforts like these. So where Nilka mentioned the advocacy of the community and the impact that such advocacy has in implementing or resulting in change, because it's through such advocacy that we get to highlight issues like these and we get the cooperation and the participation and the investment that's required to actually make a difference. I think I'll leave it there for now, but if you have any questions, I'd love to.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've heard from city planning and from the Department of Health, right? And we started from the advocacy, right? The community point. But to get from community to the city agencies, we had to go through government, right? And that looks very different for every project. For this particular project, it really took the level of government, the congressional level of government, right, to be able to allocate this money. So if we can touch on the role of government and how it played into this project.
Sure. So I remember when, even before we, like the Congress member, we came into office in 2021, there was an article that came, I believe it was in the city or something, about COVID and how the rates of people with COVID in the area across, like the Cross Bronx, was higher, and that as a result of the asthma rates and all that that impact. And one of the things, like when we already had like won the election in November and all that kind of stuff, we saw that and we were like, okay, this should be one of our priorities, like how we can work on this, especially related to the Cross Bronx. Then we came into office and we were not clear, like, okay, well, what should we do? We were looking, like, thinking about what should be the best option. And then Nilka comes to us and she tells us about Cap the Cross Bronx and the work that she has been doing, like, since 2016, and the need, like, for the federal government to do something related to this. And that's where we started, like, to figure out, like, okay, so we should be starting to work on this. We connected with New York City DOT, New York State DOT. We all came together. We should do something about this. I believe, like, in the 1990s, a study was made about the Cross Bronx, but nothing happened about it. So then we saw that there was, like, basically U.S. Department of Transportation, they have a raise grant that is basically for these kind of projects. And we saw, like, hey, this is an opportunity to apply for funding. And that was in the period that President Biden, he just came into office. As part of the Biden agenda has been to reconnect communities. And this is in some way part of that agenda as well. And there was a lot of discussion about the infrastructure bill at that time. So we saw that, and it was like, this is an opportunity, like, to apply for funding, because there's a lot of discussion nationally about reconnecting communities. And what better project to demonstrate of reconnecting communities than the Cross Bronx? That it's the Cross Bronx. If you go to Google Maps, you see that it cuts entirely, like, the South Bronx. And and that's why, like, it's really important. So New York City DOT, they applied for the grant. We did, like, 2-3 pressers or something. We also had, like, this Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, that he joined the effort as well. And then, like, yeah, like, I believe, like, it was in 7 months or so, we were able, like, to get the $2 million from the federal government for the study. Because one of the things is that we were trying to find out, like, oh, like, there's a lot of programs right now. There's a lot of funding available from the infrastructure bill. But we need a study to know how much it's going to cost the project and if actually it's going to work out. Like, we believe, like, in the capping the Cross Bronx, but one of the purpose of the study is, like, to make sure, like, how much that is going to cost and how feasible it is. So that's why, like, the first part is the study. It's going to be a long process. As for many of you, you're just starting, like, this year here at Fordham. So you're going to continue hearing about this for years. And hopefully we will get something done. And hopefully, like, when we have the results of that study, then we will go to the federal government, and also the state and the city as well, to try, like, to put funding to be able, like, to do and move forward this. So this is a really, like, this is a project that you see how advocates like Nilka and many other community leaders, they want the best for the community. They want to improve the community. They come and they have, like, as Nilka mentioned, they have a partner in government to work with it. And we are all like together and working really hard on this. And this is an example nationally, like if we're able to do it, how like efforts that comes from the community are able like to do like to make a difference. So by the way, like the one policy group, Alex, he's a Fordham alumni.
Yeah.
So the group of students that Nilka was talking about from Albert Einstein, he actually went to Fordham. So again, like you guys are just starting your journey in some way, and I feel that if you want to get more involved, if you want to work really hard, like for the community and like to make a difference, like you have advocates like Nilka. You have like city agencies that are really involved in all this project and many other projects, like to improve actually like the Bronx, and we're all working together like to for the better, like the best of the Bronx. So I'm going to leave it there and then we can continue working. So
Great. Thank you so much. I think, we spoke about the origins of this project, where the project is now, the walking tours that are coming up shortly, the importance on a national level and a local level and the role of government, and of course, the health impacts, that the public health impact that the infrastructure has. I want to conclude before we, open up for a Q&A. This is what it looks like, right? Community working with government, working with state and city agencies to really make this happen, right? And oftentimes when you see a project funded, you don't get the opportunity to see the work that was done behind the scenes to pull this off. This isn't easy, right? If this was easy and there was a point by point playbook of how to get it done, right? All these projects would happen. But I appreciate, working with government, working with our state and city agencies, really coming together, listening to each other, right? Oftentimes, particularly here in the Bronx, we have projects that are done and decisions that are made top down. And I think for us, the last over 2 decades has really, we've really seen the tables turn, right? And community being that driving force of creating the changes in the neighborhood. When I think about a project of this magnitude and the way people just thought that it was just a really ambitious and unattainable idea. 40 years ago, we had the restoration of the Bronx River, right? 50 years ago, we had the creation of hip hop, right? Like no other outlet, but Bronxites came together to create an outlet, right? And for me, this is what it's like to be a Bronxite. This is what it's like, to be in the Bronx, to have this kind of energy and these organizing skills, to get things done. So again, I think you want to be mindful of time because I think we had until about 10 o'clock. So open it up for any Q&A.
And just in case for folks that are in the other satellites room, you can drop your questions in the page for this event and I'll make sure I read them out loud.
So when you're working on so this is really a question for Mr. Policy Advisor Martinez. When you're kind of working in that congressional setting, how do you best work with people that have unlike opinions, and how do you kind of make sure your voice is heard?
So it's thinking about the political landscape right now. It's really difficult. Yeah, it's tough because like honestly and I don't want to be political, but we know that clearly there's a political party that doesn't believe in climate change and all that kind of stuff. And it's tough to bring like projects like these to the national level, especially like when we're talking about environmental justice, we're talking about racial justice, we're talking about many things that are important for our communities, that are real, that we see it every day. But some people, they feel that we're just like overreacting, or we're like saying things that they are not right. So it's difficult. At least like I have to say, like at least for this project, like I say like the planets, they align in some way, that not only like we have Nilka and many advocates like supporting this, like we came into office, and then we also have like the Biden administration that is really a supporter of these kind of projects. If we had like to have another like administration, I will say that it will have been a lot more difficult for this to actually happen. So that's why when we saw that we have all of this like aligned in some way, we were like, this is the opportunity to do this. So yeah.
I think just generally speaking, data helps. So when trying to build an argument, it's good to do your research and have supporting evidence to validate your point. So as Nilka mentioned, when they initially started the advocacy efforts, they were screaming into the wind. But once they found out that there was this group doing this study, and they had a case study to validate the point that they were making, the lived experience, then they began, people started taking them a bit more seriously. So data helps. Being able to summarize your data in a way that's effective also helps. So highlighting the disparities, highlighting the challenges faced by the community, highlighting community voices. So having people on the ground who can speak to their personal experiences, and these experiences would then resonate across age, race, other demographics, then it's a lot more powerful in that way. So I think coming from a point of not just having a point based on emotion, but having a point based on facts helps.
Can you kind of explain like the importance of labeling environmental justice as a public health issue and why it's important to like get that across?
So the importance of labeling environmental justice as a public health issue. So first, what is environmental justice? So in terms of this project, I think we could define environmental justice as trying to mitigate the inequities that exist in terms of who's exposed or who's at risk of harm, and who's actually the ones causing the harm. So a good example of this, is in the South Bronx, in the Hunts Point area, I believe, there's something called the Hunts Point Market. And there's also, it's a very industrial, busy area. So there are lots of highways. I think there are about 4 highways encircling that area. There are lots of trucks that come in to transport grocery products throughout the city. Most of these grocery deliveries that these trucks, most of the groceries that these trucks deliver are not delivered to communities in the Bronx. They're delivered to Manhattan, they're delivered to Brooklyn, they're delivered to more affluent areas. But the harm is experienced in the Bronx. And so environmental justice is an approach of mitigating the harm, realizing that just because you live in a certain area, or you have a certain ethnic or racial background, or a certain socioeconomic status, should not expose you to more harm than above normal levels of harm. I don't know if I explained that well, but above average degree of harm. So harm should be equally dispersed throughout society, and communities shouldn't experience more harm just based on characteristics that they have no control over. So I think environmental justice is ensuring that you make your society equitable in the sense that those harms are equitably dispersed.
Thank you. So we have a question coming from room 112. We'll go to yours and then we'll go there.
This is a question more for Nilka. So when you were first starting out, how was this like group founded, and like how has that grown over the years, especially as like the case studies have come out and as you've been like working with Congressman Ritchie Torres?
So as I explained before, we were just a group of neighbors. And at that time when we first started in 2017, it was a lot of local youth that were involved in the project. Over time, those, we're a volunteer-based organization. No one gets paid, in our organization to do this work. But it has really empowered us, to continue, not just this campaign to cap the Cross Bronx, but we work on other various campaigns as well. For us, it's, giving this information to regular folks, having them show up at meetings, having them share this information with others is really powerful. And people, people want to be part of something, right? Like they just don't know how to get involved. So for us, it's been great, to be able to share this information, to empower people and for them to really see the change, right? It's, where we're at right now, and I think it was explained before, is a feasibility study, right? So this doesn't mean that once the feasibility study is concluded that changes are going to come, right? But this really spurs the community to the success of being able to allocate this money for a study, and then it gives us the opportunity of engaging more people, because once the feasibility study is completed, we still have to advocate for the funding, right? And this is going to be over $1 billion, right? So really providing an opportunity for folks to get engaged now, so that, once it's completed, we can further engage them in actually getting the money allocated. So we have grown a lot. When we started this journey, we actually had no idea how we were going to get here. It was a lot of revamping and, going back, we had, different elected officials throughout the time, so it took a lot of strategic planning and a lot of, getting together and saying, okay, well, this didn't work, let's try this. But I think overall, we've been, successful so far, and we continue, we look forward to continuing just, organizing the community and really having them, be active in this project.
And something that I have to say, again, this has been a whole process. And right now at this point, we have we support this project. Like the Chuck Schumer, he supports this project. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, she supports the project as well, and the mayor as well. So all of this effort has been basically in the past 2 years or so, to have the support of everyone in some way of support, here, and all basically happen with, as Nilka mentioned, some neighbors that they want to bring this awareness to this. So
Thank you. So we have question from room 112. Considering where Fordham College Rose Hill is located, how long it has been here, and the wealth circulating in the school, how do you believe, or what do you suggest Fordham students do to give back to the community surrounding Fordham and College Rose Hills campus?
I'm going to be the bold one. I'm the non-government, non-city agency one. So when, we've thought about this, and I've had conversations with quite a couple of people here at Fordham. When we think about the case study, right, it was done by doctors at Columbia University downtown, right? And we've worked with a couple of colleges. Actually, Columbia University had a program with their with their engineering and architect students on different renderings, like what can reimagine the Cross Bronx look like. We've worked with students from the School of Visual Arts to come up with marketing strategies, right? Like how to disseminate this information and create visuals for the community. And when I think about the role of Fordham University, particularly because you guys are here, right? You guys are here in the Bronx, you're studying, you'll have these great minds, and I look forward to figuring out ways, for you guys to plug in, right? And whatever areas it is that you guys are studying, whether that's, environmental issues or policy or, just an array of things that you guys can help us with, right? And that's really up to you guys to figure out, right? Like when we approach people, we don't look at folks and be like, hey, we need X, Y, Z. We usually take the approach of, well, what are you interested in, right? Because if it's something that you're already interested in, then it'll complement what we're doing, right? So if anybody has any ideas, if anybody, wants to get involved, you can ask me for my information afterwards. Like I said, we are a very grassroots organization. We don't have a website, right? So if anybody is into, hey, I know how to create a website, like just let me know. But we can definitely share our information. We're on social media, on Instagram, if you want to check out, the work what we do, Loving the Bronx. But yeah, we would love, to engage the Fordham University community with this project. We encourage you guys, to take these walks that city planning is planning in October. And, and again, just reach out to us and we'll definitely figure out a way to plug in the students.
Thank you, Nilka.
I would say like in our case, like if you have like, if any ideas, anything that you think that we like at the policy side, we should be like working on. I know that also like in some cases, some students, you have to like write a paper or something about a project. So, and if you want to bring that like to our attention in some way, feel free also to contact us. Actually, our office is across the street right here so feel free like to contact us and we can work something out as well.
And another way students can get involved is just being plugged into your local government. So there are community boards. You should definitely, find out which community board represents your area, show up to the meetings, make your voices heard, find out who your elected officials are, show up to their offices and just be plugged into the system, vote when, elections come around, local government elections, city, state, federal, just by participating in the system, then you're able to hold the players of the system accountable and you're able to get things done. But and I think this generation, speaking to your age group, is a lot more politically active than previous generations, I would say, at this age. So I would encourage you to just keep the baton going forward, be active.
Thank you. So just so everybody knows, the folks, a lot of the students here are going to be doing tours because the Department of Planning tours were not ready yet.
Yeah.
So we created our own version. So students are going to be engaging with different organizations across the Cross Bronx, and they're going to learn directly from the organizations what is the experience for the surrounding communities. So you're going to see folks depart from here. We do want to give a round of applause to our panelists because this was a very good conversation. So we have a little something for you, but I know that folks have to start heading out. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later. So good luck with your different engagements.
Yeah, we gotta get a picture. Good job.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Picture.
You gotta document everything.